the midterm elections in Arkansas, the balance of power in the legislature remained exactly the same. Republicans held all 7 constitutional offices and the state's 4 congressional seats. The Arkansas Supreme Court seat went to the incumbent. However, there were 3 major changes voters approved. Arkansans passed the voter ID law, approved a casino measure, and said yes to raising the minimum wage. John Gripka is a social sciences professor at North Arkansas College in Harrison. He joins us from our Branson Bureau with honor student Christina Boyer. Thanks for being here. I want to start.
Thank you.
I want to start with the minimum wage hike. Voters approved increasing the minimum wage in Arkansas from $8.50 an hour to $11 an hour by the year 2021. Now, with cost of living in mind, does this set Arkansas up for having one of the most effective minimum wage increases in the country? Because we've seen opponents say that higher minimum wage could cause job loss and crash the state's economy. But can a high minimum wage in a lower cost of living state actually raise workers out of poverty?
That's, I think, certainly the hope and the ambition of the Arkansas voters that approved the measure. Looking at some trends, history tends to be a good guide for how things will play out in the future. It might be forgotten that in 2014, Arkansas voters approved a $2.25 sort of gradual raise in the minimum wage, similar to the proposal that was on the ballot this time. And looking at all of the sort of economic measures since 2014, those have all been positive. Employment's gone up. Unemployment is at essentially historic low levels. And so some of the fears about the minimum wage and the negative effects it might have last time around don't seem to have played out. This seems to have been something that's been positive for the state's economy, and perhaps that's why voters approved once again to gradually raise that minimum wage level.
How do we know when the minimum wage is too high, though?
I think it's fairly simple in terms of when those potential negative impacts of unemployment and inflation outweigh the sort of gains to economic growth. Of course, it's hard to track, exactly when you start to see that. But clearly, again, right now, in terms of all the economic indicators, they're pretty positive for the state overall.
So by the time 2021 hits, how will a minimum wage worker's salary compare to the average person's salary in Arkansas?
Tough to say exactly, but I was looking over some of the numbers that I had available. And right now, the minimum wage is, looking at that $11 increase by 2021, it would be about 55 to 60% of sort of the state's median wage, which I think right now, or as of 2017, was $19.49 in Arkansas was one of the figures I could find. So obviously it would raise that, it would be more competitive with what the state's median salaries are, but still probably somewhere in that 50 to 55, maybe 60% range of what the median wage in general would be for an Arkansas worker.
And I have a question for Christina as well. Since she is a college student, a lot of college students are in minimum wage paying jobs, and we all know it's hard to make ends meet in college. So, Christina, do you think a higher minimum wage will actually help students pay for the costs associated with college? Will it make it any easier?
I think it definitely will help. As the cost of living goes up, we definitely need to be raising those minimum wage paying jobs because they have such an impact on our college students, and that's almost, I believe that's a large percent of college students. There's not many that have those higher paying jobs, and especially with less experience, I think it is important and it will help. And even if hours are being cut by employers, I think that wage difference will help with that cut.
And another question for you as well. So looking ahead to graduation, do you think the minimum wage hike will actually benefit or maybe hurt your chances of landing a higher paying job?
It's difficult to say. I mean, if you go into a certain field and those higher paying jobs are not being increased with the minimum wage, with the lower paying jobs, it may hurt your chances of getting that job, but also it might help. It really just comes down to how the employers and the companies deal with this minimum wage increase. As a business student, I do have to consider this because obviously if you go into a job that has, you're going to be working over people who are in those minimum wage jobs, your pay may increase or it may stay the same. Hopefully the hope is that it would increase with the cost of living just as those minimum wage paying jobs are increasing, but it might affect the competition for those jobs because it may require employers to look at more experienced and skilled people to take over those higher paying jobs.
All right, Christina and Professor Gripka, thank you so much. I want to take a quick break and come back because the casino measure was also passed. I have some questions for you guys about that as well. So keep it here and we will be right back. Well, about 54% of voters said yes to adding casinos in Arkansas. The amendment calls for 4 licenses to be issued for casino gaming. 2 will be given to racetracks already allowing electronic gambling. That includes Southland Racing, a dog track in West Memphis, and Oaklawn, a horse track in Hot Springs. The measure also legalizes casinos in Pope and Jefferson counties. I want to bring in Professor Gripka with North Arkansas College along with student Christina Boyer again. So, Professor, how will the other 2 licenses be issued for this?
The amendment that was proposed is fairly clear on the stipulation as how the other 2 casinos would be awarded. Basically, it's the Arkansas Racing Commission that will have the authority to grant those licenses, and they are required by the amendment's language to only look at applicants or only award applicants those licenses that can demonstrate experience in conducting casino gaming. So they're going to have to show that they have that experience and expertise in handling those before they're granted. There's also an application fee that is required. And then they do have to show support from the county that's taken from the county judge or the quorum court. So there is a stipulation for sort of showing that they have local support of those communities as well.
Now, with that stipulation, that brings up Pope County, because it kind of faces a hurdle. Voters in that part of the state passed a measure that would require an election just to allow a casino to come into the area. That was approved by 68% of the voters. So where do we go from here in that county, which was approved for a casino?
Well, it's kind of interesting, actually. The measure probably doesn't have a legal standing. In other words, that measure that was passed by the Pope County voters, they probably can't legally enforce that, if you will. But it does show where the sentiments lie locally. And so it probably will. It seems to already have had the effect of informing the county judge and the quorum court that that's not a measure that's popular with the voters there. So although the state constitution probably legally takes precedent there, the fact that they probably now will be able to convince, again, their local county judge and quorum court, which are required by the amendment to show that they're supportive of the measure. It probably will have the effect, it looks like, of at least delaying development of that casino in Polk County.
Do we know about how much money these casinos are expected to generate for the state?
It depends on who you ask. I've got somewhere here some information, but of course the groups that were supportive of the measure, helped to get it on the ballot, etc. Their projections are pretty rosy. They're looking, quoting hundreds of millions, I think, eventually in additional revenues. The Department of Finance and Administration, so the state sources are much less rosy on that picture. And this is sort of long-term gains to the state's economy. What's kind of interesting is both groups agree that in the short term, just because of the way the measure was written, largely to get those current operating casinos approval, in the short term, the state's economy is going to take a little bit of a hit in terms of the revenue coming in. And there's actually, I don't think, much disagreement over Department of Finance and those supporter groups over, in the short term, there'll probably be less revenue tax dollars coming in. That's just because of the way the measure was sort of written.
So something we will have to watch and see.
Long-term projections, though, it's hard to say. So, yeah, we will see. We will see.
Okay, Professor John Gripka and honors student Christina Boyer joining us for Ozarks tonight. They're from North Arkansas College. Thank you so much for being here, and we will take another break.